Oh.
I'll start like.
So Pak is going to go ahead and start this here.
Do I also have my main?
So he has both fusion deployment and branded fusion. Why that's important to note is if his branded fusion were to be met by Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, which we don't necessarily know is in Steven's deck, just kind of naturally when talking about the branded strategy, having that relatively recently released fusion duplication can be huge, because it would allow him to essentially still conduct that branded fusion. It just happened to occur on the opponent's turn.
No, absolutely, and Steven definitely has figured out what's going on. A smile on his face the second he saw that Albion, the Shrouded Dragon. Now we are seeing Quem hit the field. Taking a quick look at the hand there.
Pak has historically been known for playing quite a bit of the Starlight and Quarter Century Res, so of course we see a beautiful Starlight rare guiding Quem. He's also able to incorporate a variety of new cards from the recently released Rarity Collection 2. He probably has cards like Rimbrum, for example, in his extra deck in that beautiful Quarter Century Secret rare.
Well, branded fusion hitting there in the OTS Ultimate rare, so just a lot of high rolling here. But let's see what we're going to roll on out of the deck. Looks like it's Fallen of Albaz and Bestial Lubellion.
So one of the things here that he did was he sent the Mercurier to the graveyard. You need to be wary that if you play this strategy, you can actually use Mercurier's effect on the field. So with that guiding Quem, once the Mercurier hits the field, that actually adds a layer of interaction. Or here, he's just going to banish it for the ability to search the deck for a Fallen of Albaz card.
Chilling 1 Rebellion, discard for Frost Talents. Chilling 2 Mercurier's Ad.
Certainly heads up by Pak to go ahead and get rid of the Triple Tactics talent. Obviously, something would have happened by now if your opponent was, well, having anything in their hand that they could activate. But the Triple Tactics talent probably isn't going to do much and is an easy way to go ahead and grab that Blazing Cartesia.
In beautiful Starlight rare, of course.
Oh, just an amazing collection here.
And here we have a Starlight rare Mirajane.
I'll tribute this.
Yes.
For Bestial Rebellion. Declare the effect.
Yeah, I don't have a response. We're good.
Steven certainly knows how this deck plays because he is holding 5 cards from it in his hand.
So he'll be placing the single copy of Branded
Declare
Lost.
the effect of Cartesia.
Yep.
I will say
Cartesia.
placing it in that particular zone just in general is something that I try to avoid just because it might telegraph that you're not playing Infinite Impermanence. Not that Impermanence is terribly common. I only say that because in a format with Pendulum decks running around, or at least decks that incorporate the Melodious package, which of course has Pendulum, you often want to leave those zones open because if you do set a Infinite Impermanence, you can not only negate a monster on the field, but also shut off that Pendulum zone. Scaled.
It is true technically that the Melodious decks don't necessarily have the same level of hand interaction too, so you're absolutely right that Infinite Impermanence definitely isn't going to be here, but Steven sort of mulling over the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare hitting the graveyard there, and yes, we might see Pak's favorite card appear on the field.
It also seems to be the case that he's playing multiple copies of Mercurier, so this is really fantastic. Whenever you can set this up with Branded Lost on the field and then have the Mercurier in hand, it adds an extra layer of protection for your Gimmick Puppet, which, as we learned earlier, is in fact Pak's favorite card. So he'll be having the Fusion deployment for Branded Fusion in the graveyard as a backup plan if things don't go well, but of course we know he has Mercurier plus Gimmick Puppet, so you're going to presume that things go actually quite well for Pak here.
Anything on priority? I'll activate Brandon Red, targeting Albaz.
All right, so Brandon Red's going to go ahead and bring that Albaz back.
And this is how we are going to get Albion, the Sanctifier, onto the field.
Chilling 1, Brandon Lost. Chilling 2. Targeting the Puppet and the Albion.
Yeah.
And there's the Gimmick Puppet. The Nightmare has arrived.
Yu-Gi-Oh, man.
Yeah, no, right.
Pak says, that's Yu-Gi-Oh, man. I mean, Steven is playing Gimmick Puppet Nightmare himself, so it is only fair. Looks like Steven's elected to go to the full 60 cards, so if Pak didn't know previous what Steven was playing, the fact that he's playing 60 card also allows him to deduce that it's probably a limited list of decks, this being one of them. What's interesting is, because Steven's gone all the way up to 60 cards, there are some choices that he's elected to play that take advantage of that additional space. See, he has, for example, a Terra Elements Sheeran in his deck, which I think is actually in his hand.
Going to go ahead and concede before even revealing to his opponent what he's playing. So while there's a 60. always happy to report the Yu-Gi-Oh! News to you at home, but right now, round 8 was in the past. It's time to go for round 9, game 2.
So it looks like he has a copy of Aliber. It looks like he has potentially a Branded Fusion already. If he doesn't have Branded Fusion in hand, he'll certainly be searching it here with this copy of Aliber. I do love how when you go all the way up to 60, you get to incorporate cards like the Fright for Patchwork package. I love having access to Guardian Chimera. That was one of my favorite cards in the original early variations of Branded, and I'm really glad to see it featured here.
Guardian Chimera is an excellent card for sure.
Yeah, it's probably been 1 or 2 years since we've seen the strategy. And the fact that the Guardian Chimera package is still viable, to me, some of the best aspects of this strategy.
Sometimes a card is just good right off the bat and continues to stay good, never kind of fades out. But it's true that we haven't seen Branded players use it as much, or the Illusion Chimera deck use it as much. But Branded Law is certainly a great way to get into the game here, giving a little bit of more of insurance policy there, just in case there were any other points there that Pakawat could jump in. But it looks like we are just going to go ahead and send Albaz, and it's got to be somebody else. So let's see what Steven chooses.
He already has that Branded in red. Again, as I commented on earlier, if you don't search Branded Fusion, you can assume the Branded Fusion was naturally drawn, which was the case here. So what'll be really great is he'll almost assuredly be able to search a copy of Mercurier, so he'll be able to go through his play with a little bit more protection than you would typically be able to. Ooh, he has a Pot of Desires in his hand. I do like that variation of the strategy, that if you're going to play 60, you might as well play Pot of Desires, especially if you can search out some of the more important cards out of your deck, get that Gimmick Puppet out, for example, so there's not a lot of risk. Yeah, now this is what's going to allow him to eventually go into Granganol to get the Gimmick Puppet out of his deck. Absolutely, this is protected by Mercurier, and then the Pot of Desires will be able to activate Resolve with no fear of banishing the Gimmick Puppet. So the question here now for Pakawat is, will he have a copy of Forbidden Droplet in his hand? But the only interaction that he has...
Chapter 1.
Yeah, that looks nice.
Certainly a shout out there to Battles of Legends Chapter 1. The reprint set did have a great ultra rare copy of that Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. You don't have to
You know, someone came up to me and said,
look hard to find a good copy of the card.
Yo, I hate you for making me play Desires.
Is that a variation that has that sort of rare ultra rare printing, if you know what I'm referring to?
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, that was a really cool... I don't think a rarity that ever previously really existed.
Now, speaking of variations here, though, we are going to go ahead and see the Pot of Desires. You really don't see Pot of Desires in Fusion decks that often because they need their resources, specific names and specific cards. But once you get rid of all those in a 60-card deck, sure, you've got extra, so go ahead and banish 10 and draw 2.
And Pac is no stranger to this. I think he actually played a variation with Pot of Desires at a regional or two recently. As I commented on, he's been playing Branded really for the duration of this format.
It's certainly a fun way to engage in the format and have a lot of flexibility in your deck. There's no one correct Branded list, unlike some other popular decks where everyone sort of settles on this is what we believe you should play. Pac being his own individual, he's just going to play what he wants, and it is paying off at least for that first game. Now we're seeing Allure of Darkness to draw 2, and there are some darks. We're going to banish Mercurier.
So some people refer to this as sort of the 60 card but turbo draw when you incorporate Desires plus Allure of Darkness. You even have cards like Talent that obviously can draw 2, so you've got quite the ability to draw on your opening turn.
And with all those being normal spells, Triple Tactics Thrust feels pretty good too.
And here is Spriggan's Kit, which is going to allow him to return the Branded opening from his graveyard and then put another card in his hand at the bottom of the deck. As I commented on in a previous feature match, that is the way that you can actually recycle some singletons that you might not necessarily be able to recycle. I mean, cards like Despia and Tragedy, but just knowing that you have additional layers of recycling in your deck is really important. You can tell that Steven is in fact the judge, as you commented on. He just wanted to double check to make sure that he could resolve his patchwork before activating it, as opposed to activating it and finding out the bad news.
I mean, you don't have to have a judge certification to check your cards, but it certainly helps when you're in the experience, in the vibe of going ahead and checking those so often, you know, helping players do the same. Again, it's one of those things where always make sure to read the tournament policy guidelines, even if you aren't a judge, because it lets you know what it is what you're getting into in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Competition. You're not just playing the game, you've entered an event and have to follow those rules. But speaking of the rules, once he verified that, he did know that he had that, so grabbing a Platinum Secret Rare Polymerization there from Rarity Collection 2.
Yeah, that one really pops.
It was like, I might as well just get it all right.
Ooh, and he drew Tragedy, which is going to get him an additional search. Probably going to search something like maybe Ad Libitum, because I know he has Branded in red. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. So that singleton copy of Ad Libitum.
Sorry. I apologize.
Back smiling there, just very excited to see Brandon plays. Obviously, it's his favorite deck.
As long as that has Gimmick Puppet, right? Because that is his favorite card.
Gimmick Puppet. Luckily, he did see the Gimmick Puppet in the graveyard there, so...
All right.
All right, here's the Forbidden Droplet check. That's really
All
the
right,
only
let's see what we
practical
got.
counterplay that Pack has.
Ooh, here comes the puppets.
What do you want? Yours good?
Yeah.
The Pack even asks what zone he wants to put the Gimmick Puppet in.
Steven just rifling through there and grabbing a branded opening.
You got it opening, right?
Yes.
Main phase?
All right, Pack's going to play through. I was about to say, I'm not really sure what he can do, but I guess you want to see the two cards. Pack will be going first.
Even the judge can comment on the fact that these duelists are just so happy to be here. And again, it just shows you, for the love of the game, win, lose, or draw, you are doing what it is that you love.
Draw phase?
So looks like he has a copy of Branded. Okay, I thought he had Branded opening, but it looks like he's regardless elected to start off with a beautiful new Quarter Century Secret Rare, which also came out in Rarity Collection 2 of Fusion Deployment. This deck actually got quite a few new cards, from Rinbrum to, of course, Fusion Deployment, Alibur itself.
There's certainly some great stuff there. And technically, Guardian Chimera, if people went back to it, right?
Oh, yes, you're right. I mean, I think all these strategies, because they play Brandon Red, need to play Guardian Chimera, so you're absolutely true. All right with that. That's
Add to my hand.
another one.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
Well, everyone's a winner in that set, but we can only have one winner here, so...
So here's a good interaction for those of you that play Branded at home. Branded opening doesn't require you to special summon the monster. You can add it to your hand. So what Pack here did is he put the Despian Tragedy to his hand. That way he could banish it off of the Allura Darkness and then activate the Tragedy effect. So this was essentially the same ultimate outcome, which is to get Alibur into his hand. But he was able to do it in such a way that he got a free bit of card advantage through the draw. And not that we think that Steven has any hand interactions in his hand, but now he's able to summon the Alibur with that Blazing Cartasia to protect him from something like Imminent Impermanence. So, of course, that isn't in Steven's deck at all anyway.
Branded Fusion?
We won't.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Pack even has the Fusion Deployment, which, again, he was able to naturally draw, which means that even if he was hit with an Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, there's actually still a chance that he would be able to establish Gimmick Puppet.
We're using many of the same fusion materials here, so Fallen of Albaz plus the Bestial Lubellion equals Albion.
Albion effect?
Yeah.
Going to go ahead and get rid of Fallen of Albaz and Allura the Jester of Despia. Rivals combine to form a new fusion monster, and it's going to be Lubellion.
He's going to discard Spriggan's Kit. I think he has a copy of Branded in High Spirits in his hand, which could have been another discard, but he elected to instead discard the Kit. Putting two back, and now he's going to put Mirror Jade on the field. And now he's going to presumably summon his Lubellion by sending the Albion. Now he's going to get Branded Lost.
Just great resources. Again, there's a reason why this deck will pilot you this far into the tournament. Obviously, you got to be a good duelist. We've got two of them before us, but it really shows you that while people are saying, oh, you know, Fire is the most popular deck, you really can play what you want. Pack and Steven are showing exactly that.
And now he'll have the Branded Lost on the field for his Fusion Summon of Granganol. So this is where he'll be able to search his deck for a copy of Mercurier. Now, Pat commented sort of in the back and forth between games 1 and 2 that some people, as I mentioned, tunnel vision into Gimmick Puppet. But it's important to establish other aspects of the Branded strategy, which he was absolutely able to do here by putting Mirror Jade on the field, in addition to what we'll eventually see here as he is working his way towards the Gimmick Puppet lock. So Gimmick Puppet sent to the graveyard through Granganol's effects.
Lost resolves.
Yeah.
So it actually looks like he's going to have to add Fallen of Albaz to his hand, or probably Albion the Shrouded Dragon to get Fallen of Albaz into the graveyard, because he doesn't have the Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard for the Branded Red that would allow him to go into Sanctifier.
Well, certainly the path that he took, so Albaz hits the graveyard, and there's the Brandon High Spirits.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is one of the ways that he can do it, because he can still activate the Shrouded Dragon's effect in the graveyard to put itself at the bottom of the deck to send the Fallen of Albaz to the graveyard. But in doing it in this way, he's able to get a little bit of additional advantage and search out a copy of Mercurier.
Mercurier certainly showing up in spades. Typically in early branded decks, I feel like I only saw maybe one of them being run, so it's nice to actually see people using it not only for its negation effect, but also for its banish effect there too.
Yeah, it's a really fantastic sequencing here from Pakawat, because he essentially got to more or less the same game state that he would typically have if he just searched out the Albion, but now he has the Titanic Clad in the graveyard, so he's just going to get additional effects during the end phase, and then that Branded and High Spirits bounces back to the hand anyway. So he'll have the Cartasia, the Branded and High Spirits back to his hand, the Branded and Red set, he has the Fallen of Albaz. He has everything he needs.
Yep. I'll be some effect.
Yeah, so now he'll be able to send whatever he needs off of the Quem that was special summoned during the end phase through the effect of Titanic Clad. So really showing you how you can maximize every bit with this particular strategy to make it so that if the Gimmick Puppet itself is met by, let's say, something like Forbidden Droplet, or of course you would do it to Sanctifier itself, there'll be an additional layer of interaction just by virtue of having the branded cards.
Definitely
Decided.
respecting his opponent, passing things, and here we go.
Oh, yeah, you're fair.
Ooh, it looks like he has branded opening, but I think he has Droplet as well.
Resolve.
That Forbidden Droplet is going to be game-changing, discarding the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare.
We both got to agree.
That unfortunately means he won't have Crossout Designator.
I mean, if you want to keep going, yeah.
That'll be
You
funny.
want to give me a turn forward, yeah. That would it.
Both duels having a great time up there again. It's just so nice to see that after 9 rounds, these duelists aren't miserable. They're having a good time. But
Yeah, you're good.
as we search into the deck here, looks like we are going to grab. Looks like we might have set aside a Quem.
Yep.
So it's going to be a Luber.
Luber's effect, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he does have Droplet. It'll be interesting to see how Pack navigates this.
The timing of Droplet is really going to determine the fate of this duel.
Okay.
Looks like we're just going to let that go. Practically getting a 60-card deck profile there. As we search deep in the deck to grab. Taking a quick look at the hand just to make sure what our targets may be. Steven finally elects to get.
Any instant draw?
Like
Yeah,
one brain
unfortunately-
lost, yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
activate Mirror Jet effect. Sending Renbro.
And another Platinum Secret Rare, that is Renbrom, I say.
Is a resolve?
Yeah, see, the problem with the Droplet is even if he tries to use Droplet, the Branded Lost is going to protect, well, not protect, outright stop any chain with Sanctifier. So he's going to have to try and use Droplet at some point earlier on if he wants to use it at all, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case here.
Effect of Quem. Targeting.
Taking just a moment to figure out what we're targeting here. The Cartesia is going to be what we're going for, and now I think the Forbidden Droplet's coming down. What shall we get rid of? Looks like it might just be the Aluber going to the graveyard to negate some effects and have some attacks.
Just one. Yeah, that's good. Thinking of res.
Nothing on resolution. Back moving back into the turn player priority seat. Take a look at the graveyard and thinking what might come next here.
Target, Red Vision.
Yeah, you're good.
So let's see what our branded fusion yields. Unfortunately, that forbidden droplet had to be activated, but it's not going to get you any further.
Yeah, with Branded Lost, I don't think it ends up mattering anyway, because with the protection that Branded Lost provides. So it's just one of those things that it's almost like Pack has just threatened Gimmick Puppet. I'm kind of curious why he didn't just do it earlier, but he's had the ability to summon it throughout the duration of this turn, quite frankly.
Turn, I think we're still in the draw phase.
Yeah, that's true.
But it does feel like one because of so many interactions going back and forth and back and forth. Here comes Albion.
Yep.
Shilling 1, shilling 2. Yeah.
So now he'll get his Branded Lost search, and then Albion, and again, he's all protected here because of Branded Lost. Yeah, it's really rough. Forbidden Droplets is one of the only cards that can deal with Sanctifier, but with Branded Lost, it ultimately doesn't matter. It's another one of the reasons why I think it's interesting that Steven's not playing Lubellion in his deck, because in a format where Forbidden Droplet is going to be one of the most common outs to the Gimmick Puppet lock, having access to Branded Lost so frequently makes it so that that's just not likely going to happen.
But it's just like you said, the branded lock is even easier to perform with fusion duplication, and
Wow.
the crowd jeers at the two Gimmick Puppet Nightmares,
All intents
one
and
on
purposes
each
probably
side.
done, but I can respect continuing on.
No, I would certainly think it would be over too, but no, two great Gimmick Puppets just deserve to see each other on the field,
End phase?
meet on the face of battle.
Effects?
Yep.
High Spirit
Yeah, so just to be clear, although Pack has probably, for all intents and purposes, put himself into an insurmountable amount of advantage, they are going to continue to play on at least a little bit longer.
priority.
The problem here is that he can just
Red.
reestablish the Gimmick Puppet lock by attacking over the Gimmick Puppet.
Albion?
Bringing out two monsters, it's always fun when your opponent's got one too.
Sure.
Alright. Whatever, will I send? The card that you had a good read on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I needed you.
Yeah.
They're taking a look for what we're going to send to the graveyard here. Looks like it might be that ad libitum. No, maybe instead a looper.
So I'll resolve red. No more puppet.
Glad to see that we've got plenty of Gimmick Puppet fans. Again, when the Infinite Forbidden releases, we'll be hearing plenty of cheers for this deck.
I can't tell if that's a quarter century secret or a platinum, but it's definitely one of the new rarities of Guardian Chimera from Rarity Collection 2.
I want to say that looks like a platinum rare,
Oh wait, I
but
guess I have to draw first, but it doesn't, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
again, shows you that Rarity Collection 2 really made an impact on so many different decks, but definitely on Branded.
Yeah. Switch to attack mode.
Yeah.
Effects, discard.
Something Holland of Albaz getting rid of the Shrouded Dragon there.
Effects.
And Lubellion's going to say hello, discarding Blazing Cartesia, and using as our fusion materials Lubellion itself. And that feels like maybe we are going to see it. Wow, okay.
Target.
How was his name?
Lebellion.
Oh.
Yeah.
That, okay.
Yeah. Bunch of
Yeah,
cards.
showing off Renatus, another Starlight rare.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
I got
when-
Don't
That
see
card-
Renatus every day.
You do because of Tempai Dragon, actually.
Oh, that's
It's
true, that's
suddenly,
true.
it gives you this weird point of interaction.
That's what it is, yeah.
Wow. what
And
a-
now we can applaud for